here at Families Empowered. And Families Empowered is an organization that helps parents find the best school or the best educational route for their kids. And that is the right choice for them. Every student is different. We work in 3 different cities here in Texas. We work in Austin, Houston, and San Antonio. And so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into one particular school called A+ Up here in the heart of Houston. And so today we have Paul, Cap, and Nancy, and I will let them go ahead and introduce yourselves. Paul and Cap.
Hi, I'm Paul Castro. I'm the superintendent and co-founder for A+ Up. It's good to be here tonight. Thank you for being on.
Hi, my name is Cap McWhorter. I am the principal here on campus at A+ Up.
Hello, I'm Nancy Ofori, and I am a parent at A+ Up and a volunteer.
Perfect. Thank you guys for being here. Can you guys give us a little bit more background on what grades A+ Up has to offer, what kind of curriculum you guys offer, any good things parents need to know?
Great. So I'll kick us off. So we are a middle school. We serve grades 6, 7, and 8. We're located right in the heart of Houston. We are in Midtown, not too far from downtown, in a little building that serves right now about 130 kids. We expect to serve somewhere in that range, between that and 150. So we are what would be called a micro school. We're micro because we're so small that we have an opportunity to meet and get to know not only every kid, but just about every parent as well.
Yeah, we're definitely focused on relationships and getting to know our students, our scholars, we call them here on campus, getting to know them as people and as learners. And we get to kind of custom build for every student in our building, kind of their academic plan. And it's why our kids here, we say they grow to become better thinkers and better people. And the growth that we see in them, you know, not just in their academics, but in their character, is because we get to build those kinds of relationships in such a small setting with such an incredible group of kids.
Yeah, so UP stands for unlimited potential. And that's what we're about. We're about growth. Growth is our primary focus with each and individual student. But we don't only look at academics, which of course is important. We also focus on character growth. And so as Nancy can attest, and any of our parents and any of our scholars can attest, we spend a significant amount of time coaching our kids, and we call our teachers coaches, coaching our kids into becoming not only the best they can academically, but also the best they can be as a person and through their character.
Yep.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. I want to tag Nancy along on this. Nancy, as a parent, right? You're a parent. As what grade is your child in again?
So my son has been at A+ Up for 2 years. He started in 6th grade and now he's in 7th. Okay. And for me as a parent, just watching my son grow and develop into a scholar has been very fulfilling for me. And because I do spend quite a bit of time at the school, particularly once a week, that I get to see how Coach Paul and Coach Cap, they spend a great deal of time emphasizing the growth, the development, the learning, and the developing of the entire scholar, not just the academic side. And that's encouraging to see how much effort and energy goes into making a well-rounded student.
That's great. And
yeah,
do you
I would
mind
say that's one of our hallmarks, like just the when you look at what it takes to be a successful kind of contributing citizen, academic skills is critical, but learning how to be great people is what's absolutely essential. And we do a lot of work there. That doesn't just happen on its own. And honestly, we saw kind of, and Paul can speak more to the founding of the organization and the school, but there weren't a lot of people really focused on 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, these middle school years. But all the research shows that this is really the make it or break it season for kids. This critical period right in the middle is where the trajectory is set for the rest of their life. But there's so many resources committed to early childhood education, and then once they get into high school, getting them college and career ready. But these really formative years that it was kind of, for most schools, kind of a pass through. Let's just get them through middle school. And so our school said, we're going to take the most critical years in the kids' development, and we're going to do everything we can during those 3 critical years to set the table for them for the rest of their lives, to really become the kind of people we want to lead this community.
That is great. Thank you. Yeah, I was about to ask, like, how do you create, or how do you instill what a well-rounded individual is? And so thank you for touching upon that. So I guess my question for you guys is, what does a typical day of distance learning look like for your students?
Great question. So our team was ready. Not that anyone could be fully ready. Our team was ready for what happened during the COVID stay-at-home quarantine, and Nancy can attest to this. Each one of our kids, because we're a blended school, blended is just a fancy way of saying a lot of our work happens on technology, on a computer, and a lot of our work happens face-to-face. Our school is 100% blended. Our kids were ready for this because we've been doing this since their first day of school. They've been on a computer getting some of their, what we call their tier 1 instruction, which is like the first time they learn something. They were getting a lot of that already through the computer. And as a result, they kind of had that practice down already. We got everything ready. We had not only devices for everybody, but it's some upgraded software so that when we went away, that Monday after spring break, our kids were already back in the learning. And on Tuesday, we were already starting to host online work in Google Classroom. So what a day looks like today does not look much different from what it did the Tuesday after spring break. Kids wake up in the morning. We just got this kicked off in part because of feedback from parents, but we have what we used to do before school was out, which is a morning huddle with our kids where we remind them of our virtues, and we have a Zoom call, and they're in there. We tell them, turn your computers on, turn your cameras on, and we start talking to them about things like ownership of their learning, curiosity, self-control, social intelligence, and we reinforce those virtues for about 30 minutes. Then they go to their first period class, and when they go to class, they go into their Google Classroom. An assignment is pushed out, and they have an opportunity to work on that. One of a few things happens. One, they work on it, and it's something they can do individually and turn in and get feedback on. Two, it's something that they're responsible for working with someone else on, and so they might collaborate a little bit or do some work together and get that turned in. Or three, there is an opportunity or a need to have a Zoom call. And so for the Zoom calls, those are sometimes driven by us, and sometimes it's driven by the scholar where they say, hey, I need some help. And they plug in to get that additional help. But more importantly, that face-to-face connection that reinforces that relationship that we worked so hard to build, from August until March. We want to reinforce that and keep that connection. So they get in there, they get that Zoom call, they get to ask the question. Sometimes the coach says, hey, let's schedule a time. You and me will connect, or 5 kids that have a similar question are going to connect with me. And then they get that additional help. So that happens for all their core content areas. We give them a break in the middle of the day. We encourage them to do stuff on their own in terms of physical education and some fine arts work. And then, and that happens every day. They get feedback. They get called into sessions with us if they need some additional coaching, guidance, and advice. And then they're given opportunities to get better and improve their work and to resubmit it for consideration.
Yeah, to me, that's what is probably one of the coolest parts about a really difficult situation that's happening right now for everybody. I feel like our school was pretty set up to really just hit the ground running because our students are so used to making the most of their technology. Everybody has their own laptop and is doing work that way already. But to kind of connect it to what happens in our classrooms don't look wildly different, like what Paul said. We typically would see kind of time split in a classroom. One might be direct instruction with one of our coaches or our teachers. Sorry, we use A+ up lingo all the time. Our coaches are our teachers. You'd see them working with a small group. We focus on small group instruction. It's like a huge part of what we do. Coaches working with 5 to 7 kids at a time. Then one of our assistant coaches would probably be working with some kids that are doing that collaborative work, that are working with partner groups. And then there might be a small group of kids that was doing what we call their prove it, which would be an independent practice, which is after having had direct instruction with a coach, after having done some collaborative work with a peer or a peer group, then now they've got to prove what they learned on their own. And so we're doing all those things still. We have, every kid is in at least a couple small groups a week. Coaches are still connecting personally with kids through their coaching groups. They're hosting meetings to just catch up with them. And teachers, our coaches, and admin, we're making connection at least once a week, personal connection with families, checking in with families to see how they're doing, but then also just checking in on the learning, because we get one view from the kids' side, which is great. That's huge. They need to own their learning. But because we're not right next to them like we normally would be, it's great to check in with their parents too, to say, what are you seeing? And to help them. We're trying to do a lot of work helping parents support their child's learning, because we know that is super stressful for parents right now. So trying to get them the resources they need as well. But it, different setting, obviously, we wouldn't choose to be separated from our scholars, but the learning that they're able to do is pretty incredible right now. Like, in the personal connection we're able to maintain has been surprising, honestly. It's been awesome. But Nancy could probably speak a little bit more to that part of it.
Yeah, from the parent perspective, my son was able to transition right after spring break and just hit the ground running. There were a couple of little glitches and just him getting to know where he needed to go for a new norm through his day, through his calendar. But once we got that going, he's not had a problem as far as the schedule and the transitions. And one of the things that I am loving about A+ Up is how they do put a lot of emphasis in connecting with my son and connecting with Isaiah and just saying, how are you doing? We saw that this area of learning, you're having a little bit of trouble. What can we do to help you catch up? So the coaches, the teachers are engaged and active from my perspective, what I can see with Isaiah. And he is trying to keep up with them and saying, okay, I need to be engaged. I need to be involved. I need to stay connected to my coaches. That's not his strength. So the fact that they're staying behind him, for me as a mom, is fantastic, because I know my son's weaknesses. And so they come in and they fill in that gap.
That's wonderful. So it sounds like A+ Up was already ready to, if they needed to, if anything happened, was transition, right? Every kid had technology that was necessary. You guys were telling me earlier that you were dropping off routers and anything for any parents that needed that, for any families, to make sure that they were still connected online. And as Mina commented and noticed, that you guys are not doing anything that's really just filling out packets to keep students busy. You're really connecting with them, calling them in whatever sense to make sure that you are supporting that student and their continued learning journey, right? That actually kind of leads us into the next question. How is your school supporting families during this pandemic? You mentioned how you're making sure that you're connecting virtually as much as you can, not only the coaches, but you as administrators too, every week. Is there anything that you've seen that you are just really highlighting, really doing great at?
I wanted to share this. I think it's a great kind of example. Ownership is one of our 7 virtues, and that's basically the idea that the learning is not ours. The learning belongs to the students. It's theirs. They need to own it. They need to be, show some control over that. And so part of what we feel like our role is as administrators is, how do we give students ownership of their learning, but in a new setting. especially with their parents? How do they include their parents in that learning in a more meaningful way, maybe than they would have before when they had us right beside them, checking in on them all the time. And so one of the ways we did that just recently, we just had every student in our school hosted a parent conference. And so through Zoom, students had to prepare a conference where they led their parents through. Basically, it was connected to a math assignment where they had to look at their own scores throughout the year, and then come up with a prediction on where they would end up for the end of the year, set goals for where they wanted to end, and what was going to have to happen over the next 6 weeks to get them there. And so they led those meetings. There was a teacher or a coach, plus the student, and then a parent. And they led all those Zoom meetings themselves. And to me, it was like this really beautiful picture of a student taking ownership and saying, you know, we introduce them to their data and say, hey, this is what your learning looks like. What are you going to do about that? And then they have to take that ball and say, okay, this is mine. Let me communicate that to my parent. And sometimes that was a communication of like, hey, this is where I've killed it, man. I've just slayed it this year. This is where I was awesome. But then there's also some hard conversations there too. Hey, here's some behaviors maybe that I showed early on in the year that tripped me up.
Oh yeah. The calls I was on, we had some parents who said, well, you know, Francisco said, and here's what you're telling me now. And I was like, yep. And fictitious Francisco. And we, you know, now we know the gap there. And thanks for letting us know, because I thought he was on his computer doing work. What have you been doing? And, you know, she's like, oh, I had no idea. And so those conversations were happening left and right. But because we teach ownership, we just turned right back to the kid and we said, you know, integrity, one of our O spices. We said, hey, tell your mom. I'm not going to tell your mom that you weren't doing work. You tell your mom what you were doing. You get the door. We're having a delivery right now, so sorry. And what we found out in that moment was the kids, to their credit, every single kid took ownership of where they were, and they said, yeah, you're right. We didn't have any kid who was trying to play it off on, well, it wasn't clear. No one told me. Every kid was like, yeah, you're right. And they had to own that, yeah, we were, you know, communicating with you. We were letting you know the expectations. But most importantly, with 6 weeks left in the year, we were getting them back on track. And they now understand, and they have responsibility and a commitment to their family. I know what I need to do in order to be promoted to the next grade level. And we made them say, like, are you committed to doing the work? Yes. Okay, well, that's your integrity, and integrity matters. Now you've made a promise. You have to fulfill your promise. And so we manage against their promises versus managing against, like, you're going to get a 0, which doesn't mean anything to a kid. But hey, your word matters, and we're straight up with our kids. Like, hey, you're in the 26th percentile in reading. This ain't helping you. You know, you need to tune it up. And those hard conversations motivate kids way more than, you know, hiding that fact from them. So our kids own where they are. They own what they need to do to get better, and that I'm proud of our kids. I'm proud at how well they take the coaching, how well they take the feedback. Our families support us in that, and we have, and our families give us feedback. I mean, we have a lot of opportunities where parents tell us, we appreciate this, get better here. And our response to that is the same as that we expect our kids to do. Thanks for the feedback. We're going to work on that. And we normally succeed, but we sure do try.
Sure.
That's great. So I have a question for you, Nancy. One of the questions that popped up was, can we hear more about what kind of activities scholars are doing remotely to continue learning? And so I know you, as a very active parent, what kind of activities or learning have you seen from your son working remotely? And then we'll head over to Paul and Kat too.
So one of the things that I see that they're doing primarily on the social studies side, that's the part where I get to plug in and see what's going on. I see that there's a lot of engaging information coming through for him through videos and interaction, and then he gets to be able to go ahead and put that his newfound learning into, whether it be answering questions or writing a brief summary. But one of the things that I've liked about this new schedule, this new way of life for my son, it's been that he does have to have a more accountability for himself. So he's got to sit down, he's got to come in, he's got to check in, because that's one of the expectations for every scholar at the school. They do a morning check-in, and they have a schedule and assignments that they need to fulfill. So my son is expected to have a to-do list, and as he's completing assignments, he's checking those off, where before I got the impression that he would rely a lot more on his teachers and his coaches to help have that incentive to say, Isaiah, this is due this day. And now he has to step up. He has to have that accountability for himself and saying, oh, this is due this day. I don't have any reminders. He's got to go find the reminders for himself. If the coaches are reminding him of the deadlines, I don't know about it, or I've not seen it. But what I do know is that as far as my son is concerned, he's having to take ownership of deadlines and make sure that he is on top of it for himself. And that is an expectation that we have of him as well. Just our family, we have an expectation of him to, you're expected to fulfill these assignments within this given time because that's what you've been assigned. So that's what I am loving about this opportunity, is that it's stretching him. It's giving him the opportunity to do just that. The thing that it's been grilled into him for the past 2 years is ownership and accountability, which is, it's fantastic because now he gets to put it into action.
Yeah, and I mean, Isaiah's incredible. I wish he could be on the call with us. But you would, Nancy, you could say, and I would say this to him, that's a long way from where he was as far as ownership and accountability, coming in as a 6th grader, a year and change ago.
Tremendous growth.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was the proposition. That is what drew us in, primarily me, into the school, is that they would take my son, who had been babied up to that point because he went into a fantastic elementary school, and they help him achieve all of his goals, and they make sure that he got them done. But I thought, if he's going to be ready for the real world, he needs to have more ownership. And for me, I said, this is the perfect scenario. He gets to learn those. He gets to learn those skills at a time where he's still young enough, where they get cemented and ingrained, so that when he is in college, I'm not having to pick up the phone and remind him to do this anymore.
Right. And
at least that's cool.
Yes, no, that was wonderful. That's part of what you guys were talking about before, how you're not just educating students, but you're teaching them to be wholesome individuals. And so that is part of it. That's part of your education as growing up, right? Learning to be accountable and learning how to be accountable of yourself, right? That's huge. That's huge. And the earlier that students learn this, the better and easier it is for them to transition on to whatever they're going on to. Paul and Cap, do you guys want to expand on, kind of going back a little bit, expand a little bit on what activities or what kind of work that teachers are able to do with the distance learning?
Yeah, I can chime in a little bit. So it obviously looks different. But so at our school, small groups is such a huge part of what we do. Every day a student is going to be pulled into a small group of some sort, because we're super individualized. So, there might be a particular, and it's not just by kids' reading level or their math level, it's down to particular skills. So if one of our coaches recognizes there's 6 scholars that are struggling with a particular math concept, they're going to get pulled that day into a small group where they can get some help with one of our other coaches. We have a ton of adults working with a really small number of kids. I mean, that's our model. Like, we're just going to pour as many caring, talented people into the lives of these kids as possible. And we've kind of been doing the same thing in distance learning. It just looks different. So every day we have a tracker where we track student contact for every one of our kids, and it's expectation at our school that every kid is being made personal contact with in some sort of meaningful way, whether that's, you know, in a small group video meeting instruction, or whether that's through a group chat, or whether that's through like a video message sent to them.
A text or a phone call.
Yeah, sometimes getting them to submit things even via social media. We've had teachers making social media assignments where they have to post things that are meaningful via social media. All those ways that we're connecting with kids, and that's an expectation for our staff. And
we hold ourselves accountable. We have a staff meeting every morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we review the data. Who's a red? And we take a look at the reds and we say, hey, you know, who's going to call these kids today? And Cap and I are on that list of people who make those calls. We are not going to let a kid disappear just because, you know, of a little pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work to maintain the kind of connection that we've built with our kids and our families, the parents as well. But that's kind of the work right now, and we do that through every means possible. You know, a lot of times that's through you know, video meetings. You know, sometimes it's just picking up the phone and calling and having a conversation. For some kids that it was hard to get a hold of, you know, it was drive up to the house, you know, and yep. You know, gloves on, go to the door, and Masco delivered technology. I mean, we had probably 12 of our kids didn't have reliable internet access, and so we just purchased drop-off internet for them, you know, Wi-Fi hotspots, and got them delivered and helped them. You know, they were on the porch, we were, you know, in the yard walking them through how to get logged on, get it started, so every one of our kids can continue with their education. I mean, we're just, to me, you know,
we're lucky to be a part of the team.
Yeah,
we're lucky to have Nancy is selling herself short. She said she's also volunteer. That's not, she's kind of almost on staff in some ways. She's Coach Nancy because she's also not only an acclaimed artist, but she's also our art teacher that we've had this year, and has her kids. In fact, right behind us is a piece of her work. That's a Nancy Ofori original. We are lucky to be in a community where we have amazing families, amazing parents, amazing kids, and it honestly just motivates us to work harder because we don't want to let anybody down on the team, be it a person working next to us, a kid, a parent, a family member who's depending on us to help their child reach their unlimited potential. That gets me up in the morning every day.
That's wonderful. So with such an amazing school that you guys are talking about, and the amazing parent groups like Coach Nancy, along with your support with everybody around, is there space in your school right now to apply? Do you guys have any available seats open, and what grades if so?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a few seats that we can make available for our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade classes. This is kind of the commitment we've made, and some of it's just because, you know, I don't know, maybe we're fools, I don't know, but we it is, to me, inexcusable to write off months worth of kids' education. They will not get these days back. I mean, that's the short of it, you know, that they can't get these days back.
There's 5 weeks left,
and we are not going to like forfeit that much of a kid's education. And so we've said, if there are families that want real learning for their student, that really believe that they could, you know, be empowered in this 5 weeks rather than just pushed through to the next grade. We want
a package or whatever they're doing now.
Yeah, worksheets or whatever is being handed out. We, you know, we want to support those families, you know, and honestly, those are the kind of families that would thrive here. Families that are committed to their child becoming, you know, a real learner. You know, that's the kind of people that would thrive here anyway. And so we've just said we'll make a spot for anybody, even if it's a heavy lift to get to know that kid this quicker.
You know, that would be hard and
financially stupid for us, but
we want to help that kid. And for a 6th and 7th grader, they'd get a leg up. You know, they'd be a part of our community. I know you haven't asked this question, but as a superintendent, I get to hear some of the calls that go on at the state level. And there's a big question mark as to what it's going to look like come August.
Yep.
And I can tell you that I know we're going to be ready for what happens come August. We're already talking about it. We're using these days as practice, and we're taking our lessons, we're putting them on paper. I know that we can serve a max next year, and I know that parents are going to be looking. They're going to be wanting, like, what's going to happen? You know, are we going to have another year of like a packet where I have to homeschool my kid? I have to go back to work. You know, what's going to happen? We're set up to provide that, and parents who enroll now and close out the year with us, they're already enrolled, so they have that spot next year. And once we hit that cap, and I do think we're going to hit that cap, once we hit that cap for next year, I hate telling parents, which I've had to do in the past, I'm sorry we don't have any more room. I would much rather start that relationship now, start creating that connection with the family, with the kid, and being ready for August, and have that technology in the kid's hand. That kid has gotten the practice of what it's like to be an A+ up Phoenix. The family understands what the give and take looks like. We start helping that kid understand what our O spices are, all those things. And our kid, we had a kid enroll 2 weeks before the plague hit, and that mom loves our work so much. She's done a 4-minute video testimonial about how much she enjoys it, and we're going to be posting that on our website later. But after 2 weeks, and she said, you know, Ash has been so welcomed into the school, and I'm so thankful, because my kid was in an unnamed district, and now is with us, and is making a ton of progress, whereas the kids next door, not so much.
Yeah, you didn't ask this, but it kind of goes along with it. As far as next year, we still, as of today, still have seats available in all 3 grade levels, 6th, 7th, and 8th. So if families are interested for next year, you know, we would really encourage you, if it doesn't mess up your family life too terribly, to get on board now, because it secures you a spot for next year. But as of right now, you know, we've got a few seats left in all 3 grade levels for the following school year as well.
That's great. And I think you've kind of answered it, but just to make sure, we have a question from Amelia, who said, we'll help be provided next year for those students who may not have had as much support as you all offer during this pandemic.
That's what we do.
Yeah, that's our wheelhouse, to be honest. So it's really unique. Our school kind of, we say our school looks like, if you're looking at our demographics, it kind of looks like a barbell, like a dumbbell, like two big groups of kids out on the ends, you know, like 2 big weights out on the end. So we get a lot of students who are attracted to us, families are attracted to us because their student is really advanced and has just kind of been languishing in another school, not challenged, bored, maybe is having a tough time plugging in socially. And so they come to us, and we're able to take a scholar right there where they are. And because we're so small and so personalized, we're able to really get customized curriculum for that kid to really push them. And they can, so we've got, you know, 6th graders. There'll be another video on our website. You know, we had a student named Jonathan. He came to us as a 6th grader, and he's ending the year this year still in 6th grade, but he's doing, you know, high school level math. You know, we're able to push a kid like that. But then we also we have the other end of the spectrum is our students that come to us who have really just kind of been pushed through a broken system, and they come to us multiple years behind. So we're not just talking about a couple weeks behind. We've got some kids that come to us multiple years behind, and we can kind of craft a plan for them to help close the gaps and get them up to grade level much faster.
So it'll be later. So if you have a kid, so as an example, you know, John Smith enrolls for August, and John Smith was whatever school and lost 9 weeks, 1/4 of the year, you know, this past year. We're going to give that kid a test in the first week or so of school that's going to give us a very detailed understanding of that kid's performance. And then based on that, when they have online work, We work with our online providers. We upload that data. That data then creates an individualized curriculum plan. So our kids are jagged. No kid is like a line of you're at the 45th percentile. It is you're at the 90th percentile in some stuff, you're at the 20th percentile in other stuff. And what we have figured out, and what because we have so much stuff online, the stuff they're at the 90th percentile on, we polish that, right? We don't spend time on it though. Here's a gap. This child did not catch this for whatever reason. That kid didn't catch that in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. And then that gets coached into and worked. And we know what that gap is and we work on that, but we don't worry about the other stuff. And then with that, even though we're so small, we're so small that honestly, our biggest class is what, 25 kids?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we're small. And even there, we break out. Yeah, two adults. Yeah, 2 adults in that class. But what we do is we'll take a small group of 5 kids and we'll know exactly what it is they need to work on. And either we work with an outside tutorial service or we have an inside person who works with that small group and then works on a specific skill and until it's resolved, until it's been taught correctly. And our coaches, and this morning we were on a call and it just blew my mind. They were talking about very discrete skills that needed to be worked on. They're like, yeah, the kids aren't working. And, our lead math person was like, look, here's what I'm doing to end the year. There are certain things in 6th grade that I know are going to be emphasized in 7th grade. So I'm not even worrying about those. I'm pulling all those out of the curriculum. I'm going to be spending all my time on these hypercritical skills that are super important for the first day of instruction. And so instead of spending all our time on STAR review, God rest in, Lord rest in peace, STAR, we're going to spend our time instead really focused on getting the kids knowing what they need to know. So it's very personalized. So no worries. Any child who comes to us is going to be socially mixed, but individually getting what they need.
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's hard sometimes for families to kind of understand what's really unique about a truly personalized learning environment. And personalized, it's kind of it's a term we throw around here, and it sounds really great, but I'm sure somebody on a video feed's like, what does that even mean? Like anybody could say they're personalized. Like to me, and Nancy, I'll let you kind of follow up probably, but to me, it's like, if you're thinking about your child's education, it's the difference between going to Target and buying a suit off the rack and going to a tailor and getting like a custom made suit. Not that I've ever been able to afford a custom made suit.
That's what we imagined it to be. We're excited.
But it's essentially like a student walks into a room full of tailors. I mean, that's who we're looking for when we hire people. We're hiring folks that can really just dial it in for a kid into the nuances of their learning, so that we are custom building what they need. And for some students, like Paul said, what's broken with a lot of systems is that a kid walks in, if they are a certain age, they wear this suit. They pull that suit, they pull the 6th grade suit off the rack. You're going to be in 6th grade math. Here it is. Here's 7th grade. Here's your 7th grade math suit. And they may be missing, they may walk out of that room in high waters and, a rip down the back of their jacket because no one ever filled in the gaps for them. Or it may, they may have outgrown that suit altogether. We need to challenge them to be doing something way more challenging. That's kind of the work we do here. I don't know if that illustration plays, but that's how I've always kind of seen us, is like we're a room full of like educational tailors, and we are just all of us, from Paul, the superintendent, myself, none of us have secretaries. We're not hiding in offices. We're in classrooms all day long, and we're doing the work because that's what we want to do. I don't know, Nancy, you might be able to kind of weigh in a little bit there.
So from my perspective as a parent, and like I said before, as a volunteer who spends quite a bit of time at the school, one of the things that I have seen from both coaches and CAP and MAC is that they really do hone in into the individual student. And it looks a little chaotic because every student to the as an individual, and so easy when you're there watching it, but it's magic at work. It's chaos, organized chaos. That's how I would call it. But they really do know the students on an individual level. And that is one of the things that I think makes A+ up so powerful for kids that do have, like Cap has said, that come in with gaps in their suits, where they're able to go in and tailor those and make it fit for them, make their education, make their development fit them so that they're able to grow. And you see it in the scholars when they first come in, even in their social, and the way that they behave amongst themselves and with the teachers. All of it, you see how it begins to change from month to month, because they're putting a lot of emphasis on really getting to the nitty-gritty of every single student, every single child that walks through their door. They try to capture it. And I think they do that really well. One, because they are a small school. Two, because they do a really good job at hiring teachers, coaches that are able to embrace the child where they are, and they're committed to the child's growth. So one of the things that I have seen with my son is that he's shy, he's introverted, he doesn't want to talk most of the time, he struggles to ask questions, but they're able to meet him where he is, even with that personality, and they're able to fine-tune his learning to accommodate for that, if you will. And so for me, watching them and watching how passionate and how committed they are to every single child, it's actually very inspiring, because a lot of these kids would have been given up on. The ones that are not doing so well, the ones that were left behind. But these guys don't do that. They hound them and hound them and hound them until the kids get it and they say, you can do this. It's within your power, within your grasp. You have this opportunity. We're giving it to you. Take it. And so that's the one thing that they're able to do, because they are small. Mm-hmm. And because they do a really good job of bringing in fantastic teachers who care. I mean, there is a point when we were testing a teacher, it was late, like 11 o'clock, and she would answer right back. I don't advise that parents do that, but it came to that point where we needed answers, and she was willing to spend the time to do that for us. And I don't think that we would be able to get there anywhere else.
That's wonderful. So
that's encouraging. Thank you, Nancy.
Yes, thank you for sharing. So I think the last question we're going to have before wrapping up is a question from Sarela. She asked, do you have special coaching classes for special ed during this time?
Yes, is the answer. So we are a full inclusion school. We think all scholars thrive when they're around their peers. So we don't typically have what you would consider like a pullout, like where we send students with special needs to another room. We think that they're going to thrive around their peers, so we do all in-class support. That requires a lot of people. So we have multiple adults in every classroom, normally in the building, and in distance learning, we do it very similarly. So we have our coaches are assigned a very small cohort of special education students, and they meet with those kids usually at least 3 times a week in a small group, and they make home contact at least once a week. And so we have committed, for those of you that are in the special education world, the students' IEP, their individualized education program, or their ARD paperwork, we're committed to upholding everything that we said we would do for those families. I mean, that was a community agreement between us and the scholar and the parents. And so we're doing all those services. Now it requires a truckload of work. We got probably 4 people working almost full time, and that's all they do is special education support. But we are not going to let our students that could be most vulnerable in this time because of really unique learning needs, we're not going to let them be passed behind just because it takes more work and more people. We've just said we're not going to stomach that, and so we've committed a ton of resources and people to support our scholars with special, kind of unique learning needs. They deserve an education just like everybody else, and so we're doing everything we said we'd do for those families.
And we've had a number of families who came to us with one of two stories. One, my kid's always been served in special education, and my kid's so far behind, I have no idea what's going on. And the other one is, like, no one would ever serve my kid because they kept saying, oh, he just has ADHD and he'll be fine. And the school refused to test. We've served each of those groups so well that we've had parents who've come to us and they've said, like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I had this concern, and thank you. More importantly, not only are we doing that, but we are then creating, I think, some of the best IEP plans that I've ever seen. I've been doing this for 25 years that are very specific. So it's not just like, oh, 7th grade, here's the plan. We pull it out and like we just put the new kid's name on the top. Instead, it is, here's what your kid's data says. Here's what they need to be working on. And it's a very specific, aligned, and appropriate skill. We have not had, I mean, we right now, if anything, we serve about almost 3 times the average number of special ed students. So oftentimes the knock on a charter school is that they don't serve all kids. They cherry pick their kids. We are proud to say we serve all kids. And whether you're gifted and talented, whether you're special ed, whether you're new to the country and you barely speak English, whether you've been here from the beginning and you're kicking tail or you're getting your tail kicked, all of those kids have a home at A+ Up. And we work with families to then figure out what does your kid need. And in a weird way, each of our kids has an IEP, whether they're special ed or not, because we talk about individual kids and we talk about their motivations, their concerns, their dreams, their goals, and we talk to them about it. We're like, hey, you're the one who wants to be a small business owner. You think small business owners wake up at 11 o'clock in the morning, right? No, they get up, let's go, and they're like, okay, and like, you're 13, move, and so that's the perspective we take when we're working with our kids, and that is there's a sense of urgency around. You don't have time to waste, and that's why we thought it was so important not to miss a day when it came to this stupid COVID-19 thing. We hate the fact, because we're talking with families and they're telling us, oh my gosh, this happened. I lost my job. I'm worried about my other child. I'm worried about my husband. He's got a cough. I don't know if he's sick. And we get that. We're like, oh, that's horrible. We work with the families. We help them figure it out. And they know, they're like, hey, I got this. I need you to, help my son understand math because I don't want him to be behind. I want him to stay on track. We say, great. So our job is to support. And those times when they say, hey, this is happening, we say, understand. And your kid's grade is not going to suffer. We're not monsters by any means. We're very much around understanding, being in communication, being in conversation with our families about their child. It's our student, it's their child. And understanding that connection and understanding how that works together is really, that's our bread and butter.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you,
We had Paul and Pat, and we had Nancy on board. And again, this is Families Empowered. We are hosting A+ Up right here in Houston. And so we're so excited that you guys were able to talk about your school. We'll definitely put in the comments the link to apply to your school. And we hope that we were able to answer questions from parents as well as.
Oh, we lost her. So what we do want to say, in case we're still on, is if you call that number, you're going to talk directly to either me or Cap. And what we want you to know is we're the ones who you'll be in touch with on top of our coaches. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, we are a very flat organization. And we hope that you appreciated what you, or like what you heard, and if you find that, then let's give us a call and we can talk to you about your child and how your child might fit at our school.
Yeah, we'll post in the comments our contact information. The number there will be my cell phone. That's how everybody gets a hold of us. It's when you reach out, it's hitting me in the back pocket. So that's why we work here instead of a huge school, to get that kind of connection. So don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to talk to you and find out whether we're a good fit for your child. If we are, awesome. If we're not, that's okay. Find the best fit.
Yeah, we're happy to help you with that too.
Yep.
You'll never find two individuals that care more for your kids than these two.
Aw.
Thanks. That's awesome. Thanks, Nancy.
All right. So
True. It's true. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.